Hi everyone and welcome. This is a video for Blue Box producers who are filling out their registration form along with their 2020 supply data. So today I'm going to walk you through what needs to be completed in the form and how to complete the form, hopefully help producers through that process. So I'm going to go ahead now and just share the form. So this is the Blue Box producer registration form. It's available on our website if anyone is looking for it. The first step on the producer form is to provide your contact information for your company. So the contact information does need to be for the company who is registering, and all fields on this form are mandatory. We require your CRA business number, which is from the Canada Revenue Agency. And it's a unique number assigned to your business, which is also part of your HST number. The only fields that aren't mandatory are these two here, your RPRA registration number and your Stewardship Ontario number. We just ask that you provide those if you have them. The other contact information to be provided here is for a billing contact. This is optional to provide if the billing contact, the person who you want to receive the invoice, is different than the primary contact for the company. So we'll click to the next step here. The second tab here requires that you report on your supply data. The first question that we're going to ask is about whether or not you meet the exemption in the regulation. So there is an exemption in the regulation for companies whose gross annual revenue generated from products and services in Ontario is less than 2 million. So if you meet that exemption, you can select yes here, and then there's no requirement to continue completing the form or to submit the form to RPRA. Exempt producers only need to maintain records demonstrating that their revenue generated from products and services is less than 2 million and provide those records to RPRA upon request. However, if you do not meet that exemption, you need to continue and fill out the rest of the form. When reporting on supply weight, producers have two options. They can use their actual data, or they can report using their data that was previously submitted to Stewardship Ontario. So earlier this year, you would have reported, well, many producers would have reported their 2020 supply data to Stewardship Ontario through the We Recycle portal. If you want to rely on that data, we've created a tool for you to use the SO reporting converter, and I will go to that in just a moment. If you would like to report using your actual weight, you can review our verification and audit procedure for some instructions about how to do that. And you'll have to report your actual weight in these 6 material categories. There's also some producers who will report using a combination of the SO reporting converter and actual weights, and I'll touch on that a bit as I go through the SO reporting converter, but just something to keep in mind that it may be that you have reporting in both of these columns. So the SO reporting converter, we have instructions here, but I'll go through them as well. The first step that you're going to do is you're going to pull up your SO report, and you are going to fill in all the weights that were reported to SO. So these are the SO reporting categories, and you'll put in the weight here. You'll notice that for some categories, there are further options here. So for example, newsprint is going to be paper, and so there's no further action required. If I put in a number here, this supply weight column will populate. However, here for gable top containers, since a gable top container could be either paper or a beverage container under the new regulation, producers are required to indicate how much of the weight reported to SO is beverage containers and how much of the weight reported is paper. So here I'll just put in some numbers, but a producer will have to figure out that, and there's several places throughout this converter where that's the case. Once you've completed these 2 columns, the next column that needs to be completed is the additional weight of materials supplied in 2020. So this column would be used for any producer who had used a deduction from their Stewardship Ontario reporting. So different for RPRA and Stewardship Ontario is that you have to report your total weight. And then there's only 2 deductions that are applicable under this regulation. And I'll get to those when we go back to the other sheet. So you have to report your total supply weight. If any material was deducted from your Stewardship Ontario report, you should add it back here. And finally, on this sheet, you need to report if you have any certified compostable materials which were included in your reporting to SO. So certified compostable materials need to be reported separately under this regulation. So if they were previously reported as a gable top container, I would put it here that those are actually certified compostable, and you'll see that it was subtracted from the total in this column. The numbers from this column will automatically populate back on the previous sheet. So we can go back here. And also just note at the bottom of the sheet here, we have some definitions to help you in determining. So we have beverage container, rigid plastic, flexible plastic, certified compostable definitions. Also hazardous special products, because there are some products that were previously reported to Stewardship Ontario that may now be obligated under the hazardous and special products regulation. So you should check the definitions in the regulation there if that applies to you. And finally, we have some information about newly obligated blue box materials. So these are materials that would not have been included in your Stewardship Ontario report, but that you do need to include in this reporting. So if you have any newly obligated blue box materials, you need to add the actual weight back on the supply data sheet. So we'll go back there now. So as you can see, the numbers have come over from this SO reporting converter and they've populated. Because I'm going to pretend that I have some newly obligated materials, I'm going to add some additional weight here. So I'm going to say that I had 3,000 kilograms of newly obligated materials, and you'll see that that gets added to my total for paper here. So once you've reported all of your supply data, the next step is to report the weight of materials to be deducted. So again, under this regulation, there are only 2 deductions that are applicable. So they're outlined here. The first is where blue box materials are deposited into a receptacle at a location that is not an eligible source, and where the product related to those blue box materials was supplied and used or consumed. So the best example of this is to think of a fast food restaurant. Somebody is given food in blue box packaging, they consume that food on site, and then that packaging is disposed of on site and managed on site as well. The second exemption is for when blue box materials are supplied and collected from an eligible source at the time that the related product was installed or delivered. So here, the example you want to think of is somebody is delivering an appliance to a house, and that when they deliver that appliance, it comes in packaging, but the person installs the appliance and then takes the packaging away with them. So those are the only 2 deductions that producers can apply for under this regulation. If you qualify for any of those deductions, you can enter them here. So I will say that some of my beverage containers were supplied and collected at a fast food restaurant, and so I'm going to deduct that number there. Now, coming down to this table, this will be completed automatically, and it's the weight of blue box materials supplied minus the deductions. So this just gives the producer an overview of what they have reported. And the next step on this page is to report the weight of certified compostable products and packaging. So here's the definition of certified compostable products and packaging. To report products as certified compostable, they do have to be certified under one of these 5 certifications. So your product has to be certified under one of these certifications, and it also has to be only capable of being processed by composting, anaerobic digestion, or other processes that result in the decomposition by bacteria or other living organisms. So those are the requirements. And if you have any certified compostable product weight, you would report it here. And that's the end of supply reporting. So we're going to carry on to the next step, which is reporting on producer responsibility organizations. So there's no obligation that a producer has signed up with a pro before they submit this registration form. But if you have signed up with a pro, we ask that you indicate here that you have and what you've contracted with that pro for. So there's two main reasons that a producer would sign up with a pro. The first is for the purposes of rule creation, which is the process through which producers will be allocated communities for collection under the new Blue Box regulation. So all Blue Box collection in Ontario needs to be allocated between producers. And if producers want to be represented through the rule creation process that will establish how that happens, they should have a representation agreement with a pro. So if a producer has a representation agreement with a pro for the purposes of rule creation, they would say yes, and they would write their pro name here. Another reason that a producer might sign up with a pro is if for the purposes of meeting their collection management, promotion and education or reporting requirements under this regulation. So if a producer has contracted with a pro for any of those purposes, they would say yes here and enter the pro name. If a producer doesn't have a pro, they can just say no and they can leave this section blank. If you have signed up with a pro for the purposes of collection management, promotion or education or reporting, we ask that you indicate which service is here. So on to the next sheet. This is the summary and fees sheet. So this sheet is just for information for the for the producer. So it gives you your total weight in each material category, as well as your total weight of Blue Box material supplied. Based on that weight, your registry fee will also be calculated. Your registry fee, we will be sending you an invoice after you submit the registration form. So we'll review the form for completeness, and then our accounting department will send an invoice for payment. But this just lets you know what your fee is anticipated to be. And if you want more information about how fees were set, you can click this link here. So the final step to be completed for the registration form is to complete an executive attestation. So a producer will double click here to open the executive attestation. It needs to be completed by an officer of the corporation, so somebody who has the authority to bind your organization. That form needs to be completed and submitted along with the registration form. Once that's all completed, you may wish to password protect your file. So it's a producer's responsibility to safeguard their data. And on this sheet here, we have instructions about how you can password protect your file. Once you have completed the registration form, you've completed the executive attestation, you've password protected if you choose to do so, you can email the registration form and the executive attestation to registry@rpra.ca. So you will submit the form by email to registry@rpra.ca. And that is the steps that are required to complete your registration form. So we're just going to let you know about some resources that are also available for producers. So if you didn't get the answer you were looking for in this video, these are some other resources you can look to in order to complete your registration and reporting. So our website has some great information for producers around the regulation itself, as well as specifically for producers. We held a webinar earlier this year about the registration and reporting requirements for producers. So that's also available on our website. We also have a registry resources page that has compliance bulletins and registry procedures. Most relevant here is going to be the Blue Box verification and audit registry procedure, which, as I said, has some information for producers who are choosing to report using their actual weights. You can also contact our compliance and registry team. So you can reach our team at registry@rpra.ca or by phone 833-600-0530. And finally, we have a lot of frequently asked questions on our website, and these are updated as we get questions in from producers that we're seeing are creating a lot of confusion. So we do recommend that producers check there if they do have any questions and that are hoping to get answered. So hopefully that helps everybody complete their registration forms. And if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to the Compliance and Registry team, and we'd be happy to help.